handle the truth. Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Who's going to do it? You, Lieutenant Weinberg?
All right, fine. Let's just use that. Now, if you want to, you can actually do the actual search and find famous, quotes or famous MP3s or speeches or something like that. You can take it from a movie from YouTube like this. Now, how does this work? Well, we copy the URL, go to the YouTube to MP3 and paste the URL. Okay, MP3, download. Now, of course, it's going to give you some stupid link here. Just close that down. And it's basically saying, don't use the first one. Man, I don't like Chrome. Let's try this one. Download. All right, that looks like it's working. Those. And I think that downloaded. Let's go check that out. Greatest acting moments of all time. Let's take that and cut it. And I'll go to my Kinetic Type here, right? And I'll just paste in greatest monologues of acting music. So that's now an MP3, and I'm now going to just cut it up so I have.
Handle the truth. Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Who's going to do it? You, Lieutenant Weinberg? I have a greater responsibility than you can possibly fathom. You weak for Santiago.
So we know that we've actually got it here ready to go. So I'm just going to go ahead and launch After Effects. It's interesting, we're still in 2021 here. So if you go to download the Adobe Creative Cloud, be aware that 2022 is out there. It's just the campus here has not updated yet. Which is not a bad thing because 2022 did have some flaws in its media encoder, but I think it's been resolved. But just be aware that 2022 may be a little bit different. I haven't yet to find too much different about it than 2021. So I'm just going to launch Adobe Creative Cloud here. And this again might be a good practice here to kind of say, hey, okay, well, I need a folder audio, right? And I can drop that into the audio folder, right, to have it ready to go. Let me stop sharing a second. I want to see if anybody's in the waiting room here. Hold on. Let's see here. Yeah, okay, back to share. Okay. So let me jump right into After Effects. So when you launch After Effects, this is essentially what the splash page looks like. This is pretty much the same that go with all Adobe software, meaning it's showing you, get more and just basic tutorials here, motion graphics templates, essential property, content aware fill video, okay? You could also go into the learn section here, but I'm just going to close that down here. And be aware that if you want to learn step by step, I get a lot of students like Mr. Liebman. Are you going to do step-by-step learning with us? As in, you do something and then you wait for the class to do it. I do not teach that way. I don't teach that way mostly because this is college. And you can learn that step-by-step process on your own. That's why I don't like textbooks. You can do that by going here and choosing the Learn section and get started. Insert graphics. Remove, there are, basic tutorials, just as if this was a textbook built into the software here of Adobe itself. But I'm just going to go home here, and inside the interface here, what you typically want to do here when you're working, if you already have a project, you can open it. If you don't have a project, make a new project. Now you see, when I do that, nothing's really changed, nothing's happening yet. This is the basics of the interface. Now to start here, I'm actually going to start here at Window and Workspace. And you'll see that the workspace I tend to use, or kind of demonstrate in, is the default workspace. But you can see there are other workspaces available here. This is just the design of the interface, because there's a lot of redundancy in these software, these Adobe packages, meaning there's a lot of repetition. meaning I can find it at the top, I can right click on something, it's in the tools, it's in there. And what this default workspace is saying is that the windows that are available here are the align, audio, character content, info, library, paragraph reviews, tools, trigger, composition, project, and timeline. Well, that's what we're seeing here. And I'm going to start off here in this window in the left-hand side here. This is the project window. And this is where we bring all of our content into. So, for example, I've had that one audio clip. Well, I can either import file, motion graphics, kinetic type, audio, and choose it. And you see here, I'm choosing it to import it. The only option it gives me here is footage. Now, what does footage mean? Footage means that it's one layer. It's not a composition. If I were to bring in something from Photoshop that was made up of multiple layers, I would have to open that as a composition. And I can import it. And you see it is now loaded in. It says it's an MP3. And you can see I've got a waveform connected to it. It's 19 minutes long. All right. I can also right click here, import and file. I can also, with the folder open, simply drag it in to get it in there. So this is where we bring in all of our content, and I'll discuss it in greater detail as we go. Down below here, this is our timeline, okay? So this on the left is where our different layers of information would go. And on the right, this is our timeline in time. So for example, if I take this down and I drag it into my timeline, okay, you're going to see that, yes, it has got a speaker, meaning it is audio only. And you can see here that the length of it is just over 19 minutes. Now, I only want that very beginning audio clip to work with here. So I can actually open up this little white arrow here. You see it gives me audio editing. And I can look at the waveform. And when we look at that waveform, it's going to give me the waveform for the whole clip. I can also hit the space bar here to play it back.
You can't handle the truth. Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Who's going to do it? You, Lieutenant Weinberg? I have a greater responsibility than you can possibly fathom. You weep for Santiago and you curse the Marines. You have that luxury. You have the luxury of not knowing what I know. That Santiago's death, while tragic, probably saved lives. And my existence, while grotesque and incomprehensible to you, saves lives.
Okay, so let's just say I want to use that first beginning clip. Well, I can come over here, and this is kind of neat. I can move that clip down there. You can also hold shift to get a snap. And so you see now, instead of the 19.5 minutes here, I'm only going to use 37 seconds of this. But I need to clip this composition window down. This involves me going to the composition settings and changing it from being 19, almost 20 seconds to now being hours, minutes, seconds, 37, and frames, based upon the composition settings of 1920 by 1080 or HD TV 1080, 2997. So remember, this is the output we want. Okay, if you don't, you have all these other choices, but typically you want HD TV 1080, which is a 16:9 ratio with 1:1 square pixels. And you've got all this information here. You also see the background color says black. Well, if you're familiar with Adobe, if you're familiar with After Effects or Illustrator, you know that the background color is typically based upon whether it's for print or for the web or for video or something like that. So if it's for print, typically the background color would be white. Well, in a video world, what color is your computer monitor or your television on? What color is it when there's nothing on? Well, it's black. But this kind of tells us now here, if I come down over here, let's look at this window here that's defining our composition window. You can see here, this is just showing you the zoom value. See, so I can say 33% or something like that, or make it fit. I'm currently looking at a third quality of the resolution. Not a big deal here. I'll go to full just to see, because there's nothing on here right now. You also see there's this checkerboard, toggle transparency. So you see, even though it appears as black, it's actually transparent. There's actually nothing there, okay? I've also got things here like title action safe. This gives us this grid, whereas this outer gray box represents the thing called action safe. So any action needs to happen inside of there if it's important. The next grid on the inside is title safe. And the general rule is we just don't want anything, information that is text or title or logo to be outside this, because on some screens it might get cut out. And then we've got some other different things, exposures and take a snapshot and that kind of stuff. Don't really use that. So now if I take my little marker here and I scrub, you'll notice I'm not hearing anything. This is because After Effects requires us to hold control if we scrub through.
Can't handle the truth. Son, we live in a world have to be guarded by men with guns.
Okay, that's kind of funny. But what's really neat about this is After Effects tells us visually by looking at a waveform when things need to appear. So all I need to do now is, the process here is basically how is to break down the dialogue here, the spoken word, break it down into beats or phrases. So let's just look at this very first phrase here.
You can't handle the truth.
Okay, you can't handle the truth. Now, me personally, I like to kind of get most of the spoken word broken up into phrases here. But I like to use sometimes, I'll use Photoshop or even Illustrator instead of using the text tools. So here we have the different tools in After Effects here, and there is a text tool. But the text tool inside of After Effects is really cool because you can animate that using some of these effects and presets. And again, there's a YouTube channel link, there's a YouTube video I've made on how to animate text inside of After Effects, which I'll link. But you can see here under animation presets, there is a text animation preset tool. So it's pretty unlimited what you can do with the text tool here in After Effects. But for getting started here, I'm just going to start over in Photoshop. Okay? And I'm going to break these things down into phrases, because what I want the majority of the words to do is just appear when they're being said, using the waveform to control the timing of things. But then I can animate more dynamic words using the text tool inside of Photoshop or inside of After Effects. So first thing I'm going to do is create new. Okay, and I'm going to go to film and video here. And right at the front here is a 1920 by 720, 1920 by 1080 rather, setup. Background color, I can use white, I can say black, doesn't really matter here. And I'm going to go create. Now this is going to give me, look at how it already has action title safe grid set up as well. Now, what's he say?
You can't handle the truth.
You can't handle the truth. All right, so watch what I'm going to do here. Each word, let's go ahead and grab the text tool in Photoshop. Again, I'm just using the text tool. I'm going to go ahead and choose white for now, just because I'm against a black background. I'm going to go ahead and pick a font that is bright, bold, easy to read. Maybe use stencil, because I know it's kind of talking about military, kind of you can't handle the truth here. So I can pick a font that stylistically fits, but is still easy to read. Very important here. If you can't read it, it fails the purpose, right? If it's bright colors, it fails the purpose. Okay, and I'm going to click here, and I'm going to say you. We go ahead and pick a larger size here. Let's say 120. He's kind of shouting, right? So let's try 200. And all I'm doing here is going to set this up. Okay, you can't handle each individual layered. So align this a little bit better here. So there we go. Okay, just like that. And finally, and I'm going to make that even bigger. There we go. Okay, and I'm using the grids here to kind of even it up, make it look clean and balanced. Right? So what I've just done here is I've laid out a composition of the layers of everything that's going to be said in that first phrase. And I can come here now and simply save as to my folder. Ocean Graphics, Kinetic Type. I can even make a new folder here, and I'll call this new folder here PSD comps or something like that. And I'll just call this comp 01, or I could call this phrase 01, or shot 01, right? And I'm going to save it. Okay, now I'm going to come here. While I've got that there, I can scrub through here now, get to the next phrase, and break it down.
Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns.
All right, let's simplify that.
Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns.
Son, we live in a world that has walls. All right, let's watch now. Come over here. Son, we live in, get rid of this one because it's so big. So each one's getting its own layer. Okay, so I can even come here now. Son, we live. See, I'm using my alignment tools here. By the way, if I put a box around all these layers here, we do have alignment tools. We have alignment tools right here, where I could say, yeah, make them evenly and evenly distributed. See? Which is kind of, let's do that. Okay, what did it say, son? We live in a world.
Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those
A world that has walls. Son, we live in a world that has. So what I'm trying to do here is just get it done first, right? I'm just trying to get it simple layout. So I got this laid out now. Now I can come here and, again, save as phrase 2. And I can keep going here, using the after effects and the waveform here to control when things appear and when they don't appear. Now, watch this. This is where it gets fun here. Because now it's time to bring in those phrases, time them out, and then animate them. So again, whether I right-click import, file import, or drag in, I'm going to import phrase 01. But be careful here, because you see, first things first, it's going to say Photoshop sequence. That is because there's phrase 01, phrase 02, phrase 03. We do not want the sequence, or else it'll bring them all in at one time. And import as, well, I said earlier, footage means it's one layer. Well, we don't want to bring them in as one layer because we want to animate them. So I'm going to import as composition retain layer size. Import. Okay. And you see over here now, right? This composition is called greatest acting monologues of all time. That's our audio file. And this one is called phrase 01. So I'm just going to double click phrase 01. And you see now it has brought in all of my layers. And it's given me a length of time here, which is totally incorrect. So what I'm going to do here, okay, this is kind of cool, is I know this doesn't need to be the 37 seconds that it was before. It probably only needs to be about 7 seconds because it's a very short phrase. Now watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to take phrase 01, go back here, and I'm going to drop phrase 01 on top of this piece. So you can see now phrase 01 is going to appear right there. You can even see it's even shorter than I need it to be. Okay, so it only needs to appear right there. So what else am I going to do here? Well, I'm going to take this piece of the audio, duplicate it, and I'm then going to do a split. Okay? So that I can take this audio clip here, see this audio clip, and I'm going to cut it, Control X. Go to my phrase 01 here, and Control V. And you see now that little piece of audio pops up here with the waveform. See that? Like I said, it's quite short.
You can't handle the truth.
I don't know why. This is kind of neat. It's kind of fading in the beginning. Watch what I'm going to do. The keyframe. This is how we key valuations to set a value. So if we hit this little thing that looks like a stopwatch, and you see it gives me a blue dot here and a blue dot there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the beginning here. I'm actually going to increase the volume of that beginning because it sounded like it was kind of faded out. Let's try that.
You can't handle the truth.
There we go, a little better. Now we're prepared here to animate the words or the layers to the waveform. Now, one thing that's great to remember here is whenever a word is spoken or a sound effect happens, you get what's called a beat. It peaks and then drifts, okay? And you can see a lot of these words are just kind of running together. So wherever we have a peak, like right here at the beginning, let's hit the Control. See, because he's actually saying you can't. He's running the word together. But I want to make sure that right here, right where that beat pops, is where I want the word you to appear on screen. I can rearrange these as needed. Okay, so I want you to appear on screen right there. So I'm just going to key its position. Now I can go back. So you see I'm at frame 26. Let's go back about 4 frames. Go to frame 22. And I'll have the word you come in from the bottom. So watch what it does.
You can't handle.
So where is the can't? I'm just holding down the control key. So can't needs to be on screen here. Well, let's close the U. Rearrange, go to the can't. Key its position there. Go back 5 frames, which will take me to 2, 3, 4, 5. And maybe I'll have the word can't fly in from the bottom right. Okay, let's scroll further. So the word handle hits at this big pop right here. Okay, so I'm going to open up the word handle. Open up its transform, key position. Now, it's kind of cool to see this here because you can key position, scale, rotation, and opacity. So any of these could basically be brought in. So something cool here I'm going to do, okay? Because he's going to say handle. So I'm going to do a thing here. Let's see here. Let's do this scale and position here. This will be interesting to add a little bit more dynamic. Okay, we're at 107. Let's go back 5 frames. 102. And maybe I'll have the word handle fly in from the left. Now, see, so handle's going to come in here. Now, handle. See? So really, I'm going to have the word handle. I'm going to key the scale there. Scale up. Go back a little bit in time. Scale down. Go back in time. Scale up. So I'm almost saying like handle, and it's animating the entire time. Okay, let's go to the beginning and see what we've done so far.
You can't handle the truth.
See? So we're adding subtle animation to this. Simple stuff, but just getting it down. Okay? Now, so this is the. It basically says the, handle the truth, but that's okay. Let's go to the position. We're at 129. Let's go back 5 frames. Okay, where's the going to come from? I'll have it fly in from the left. Okay, and then the word truth.
True.
Right? Funny how they don't even sound like they're saying the word. Let's open that up. Let's say I want truth to be here. Okay, and I'm going to do a rotation as well, just to have fun with this. 204, let's go back 5 frames. Okay, and I'm going to have truth come straight up from the bottom. And I'm going to give it 1 full rotation. So this now should be the complete animation of our first phrase. Watch.
You can't handle the truth.
See? And the timing is they're appearing right when he says it, almost appearing just before he does. Now, there's some cool things we can add to this now that we've kind of got it going cool here. Okay? One thing I can add is motion blur. So I can add the motion blur just by activating these 3 little dots here and making sure that it's active here. Now watch how cool when they fly in.
You can't handle the truth.
See that? I can also go into some interesting, I'll give me motion blur. You'll also notice that in many ways, the movement is very linear. Well, I told you one of the principles that we're dealing with here is the principles of animation. Timing, pacing, all that stuff. So what I can even do here with each of these is go into the parameter that I've keyed, for example, position, and open up the graph editor here. And you see now, I can see the graph of that movement of that U, that word U coming on, and you see it's a flat or a linear tangent. Well, the great principle that exists is called ease in, ease out, or slow in, slow out, meaning all things move. Nothing moves in a straight line and nothing moves at a continuous speed. Car, you car at a red light, light turns green, you go from a stop, you speed up, and then when the next light turns red, you slowly slow down. So I can actually do that by performing a ease in, ease out curve here, simply by checking this box, easy ease, and you see now it gives me more of a curve, Bezier curve in, out of the animation. And I can do that by highlighting all the movement capabilities here, even the scale, the rotation, and it just gives me a better, just a more natural animated movement than the straight. And you see how it kind of works here. And again, I'm just using the graph editor to do this. Select, ease in, ease out, easy ease. And of course we have a background, and then I can just deactivate my graph editor to get back to my timeline. So now watch how smooth the motion is.
You can't handle the truth.
See that? All right. Now then, a couple things now we need to take into account, because we've got phrase 01 looking very good here in a basic color, basic font, basic movement cycle here. It does still have a background. So I'm going to deactivate the black background, right? And you can see now what I could do if I want to put a different color background in. I can also now go over to the original, which I could at any time I want to here, rename this. Instead of the name of the audio here, I could call it the master comp. See, and now you can see the master comp is ready to go. And you notice here now that if I open up the audio of the phrase 01, strange, phrase 01 should be giving me an audio file, but it's not doing that. Let's see here, did I deactivate?
You can't handle the truth.
All right. So all I need to do here now is just find out, remember the U at the very beginning, which is right about here, is where I need to line up the U. Or I could open, I don't know why it's not giving me a waveform here. It should be giving me a waveform. But that should activate it. Then I can deactivate the actual audio on that one. So we can get.
You can't handle the truth.
Right?
Son, we live in a world.
All right. While I'm at it, might as well just hit Control S to save. Make sure we're saving. You always want to save, like I said, to the proper folder, right? So I can come here and I can call this, I'll call this, we'll just call it your last name, right? Kinetic Type. Now, what's neat about this now is now I can start working on my phrase 2. Well, that could be a right click or in the file import, phrase 2, not a sequence, as a composition, and import. Okay, double click, and now you see we've got our master comp, phrase 1, and phrase 2 ready to go. So what do we need with phrase 2 now? Well, I need to copy this clip of audio here and paste it in so that I'm ready to work on my phrase 2. Right here.
Son, we live in a world that has walls.
Okay. Now that audio needs to stop there, so I can split it and eliminate.
Son, we live in a world that has walls.
Okay. And now it's a matter of doing the same process here of animate this to this, or get it back into here, phrase 02. And now I'm ready to have that come in. But one thing I want to make sure of too before I do this is when this is done, right? And he's about to move into this next one, I want to maybe have this fade. I maybe want to have it blur out. I want to maybe play around with the opacity. I can animate and turn and have it fade away. And this is where we can get to introduction here to even some cool things here. Okay, wait, let's go with phase 01. And I'm going to activate this, and I'm going to show you a neat technique of basically doing the 3D layer here. Okay? Now that I hit the 3D layer, you'll notice instead of just X and Y, I've got X, Y, and Z. And I'm going to do a couple neat things here. I'm going to actually pivot this, change the anchor point. So my anchor point pivot is on the edge. And then I'm going to move it back into place. And I'm going to basically say, now that he's done with this phrase, I'm going to do a Y rotation and have it disappear off the back. Roll away, so to say. You see this, right? So that now, if I hit play,
You can't handle the truth. Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those.
and there you can see where I'm getting the echo effect, right? Because I've got this, I still have it on audio on phrase 02 because, well, I have yet to animate phrase 02.
Can't handle the truth. Son, we live in a world that has
And
walls.
now I'm ready to start animating phrase 2, and it'll drop right into its place. Now let's go ahead and do another simple, okay, animation here. Watch this. So this is his next phrase.
Son, we.
Okay, watch this. Sun, let's do this in order. Sun, we live in a, now if I'd done this in order inside of Photoshop, I wouldn't have to be doing it. World that has walls. And I'm going to go ahead and hide my background layer so I don't have to fight with it. So watch now this shortcut. I'm going to highlight all these at once. Right here. I'm going to open them all at once. Open transform all at once. And key position all at once. That's frame 11. Now let's go back 4, what did I say, 5? Right there. And watch what I'm going to do. Sun, we live in a world that has walls. So all I've done this time around is I set a key point to be on screen, all at the same time on all the layers. And then I went back in time to 5 frames and I pulled them off screen. But now, you see, they've all got the same key, but now I need to have them appear in the right timing. So again, this was the word sun. Let me move that one down. Okay, so we is about here. Okay, so let's grab the word we, and I'm going to have the key, the second key, be right there. See? Living on. Oh, now I'm going to go live. And you see I'm just moving and nudging the layer for that key. Live. This is in. And you see it when you're talking fast, it can get really complicated here.
The world.
Okay, that's and I'm just putting that second key to appear here.
World.
Okay, world. Let's put that last second key, world. It's kind of tough to hear that. This is where, again, look at the graph to see. See? It's almost like that happens right after each other. So let's go to that. There. And I already know has is just behind it here. There you go. Okay. Just going to offset the has just a little bit. Just a little bit later than that. Has is right there, so I'm way off. Move those a little closer.
Wall.
Okay. And let's put the walls and have its second key happen right there. So it's just a more expedited way of doing this, of doing it all at one time and then just moving the comp in time. So now let's see.
Son, we live in a world that has walls.
See? Now let's go ahead and minimize these all. Have some fun here. Let's go ahead and apply the motion blur to all of them. I go to my master comp, and it should line up properly.
You can't handle the truth. Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls
It's a
have
little off, so let me just back it off a little bit. Just leave it off.
truth. Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls.
All right. So again, you could do some really cool thing with this. Now, this is where the second he says walls, he keeps talking. So maybe right here, I'll just opacity and have it fade off to now get phrase 03 to work for me. And then you just build it and build it and build it.
Can't handle the truth. Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns.
All right. Now I'm going to do a little bit of a cheat here, okay? We live in a world with walls.
And those walls have to be guarded by men with guns.
And those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. All right, watch this now. Okay, now I'm going to do something different here. Okay, I'm going to take the text tool here in After Effects. Click. And those walls have to be guarded with men, guarded by men. Men with guns. Guns, okay? Let's see here, I was using stencil. Let's go find stencil. Stencil, here we go. Let's go to my paragraph setting. So yes, you could use Photoshop. You can use After Effects. So even here, watch what I'm going to do here. Okay, let's do that. Character. You can see all the things you can do here in terms of just using the font text tool elements here in After Effects, just like using Photoshop. So I could have actually done individual words. You see it creates a text layer right here that I can have the
walls, and those walls have to be guarded.
Right? I'm just going to use this little snippet right here. And I can minimize that, and minimize that, and minimize that, do whatever I need to. Okay? Now, okay, so this will start coming out right here. It tells me that this opacity key has to be a little quicker. Pretty quick here talking, see? So, next phrase is coming up, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Well, I have the ability to animate this text here using, well, it's a text. So I can come in, you can see there's text elements here, there's more options, you know, you can animate by character, you can group and alignment and do all this stuff to it here. But there's also some very cool pre-made text animation tools here using effects presets, animation presets, text, animate in. In fact, there's even one here called templator. So if I bring that in, especially when someone's talking fast here, and you see when you did that, it gave me an animator with a range selector, with a start key and an end key.
Also, those walls have to be guarded by men with guns.
Me, so that's a little slow.
World that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Who's gonna do it?
Now you see, yes, it's an easy button hitting that typewriter, but it is a little sloppier in the timing and pacing. Now, you can see here, oh, it is keyed going from start 0% to 100%. So I could come along here.
Tap it, 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 tap it.
But you can see there are
those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Who's gonna do it? You.
Okay. Like here, for example, guarded by needs to already be on screen. So maybe what I'll do here is speed it up like that, guarded by. And I just sped that up a little bit to happen a little faster.
Walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Who's gonna do it? You, Lieutenant Weinberg. I have.
All right. So the process here is pretty cut, dry, and simple. You're just animating text. Now again, you could use.
I meant guns.
Okay, and then I can come here. Let's go ahead and quickly throw a 3D layer on this. So the second he says the word guns, let's go ahead and transform, and I'll do a different. Maybe I'll offset the position. So my rotation now will be an X rotation. Like that.
You can't handle the truth. Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Who's gonna do it? You.
All right, so I can keep working here and building and get these phrases. You can see I'm pretty quickly ripping through this. You're welcome to do the Photoshop process like this. I have no problem with that. Example here is, like I said, if walls. If I were to take the word walls here, I can change the color in Photoshop. Okay? I can change the font type. I can make changes here in the Photoshop, and as long as I hit Control S and save this, After Effects will automatically update. See that? So you can make changes back and forth with Photoshop as long as you're not changing the name of the layer or something like that. All right, let's assume I've gotten through this, okay, and I've gotten to a point where, okay, maybe I want to change the background or do something like that. Well, Remember, we're dealing with no color background right now. Now I can add like a layer solid here. I'll just make it be the size. You can see it's a little bit of a gray. Let's put it all the way at the bottom. So I have this gray solid. I can even put on a gradient. If you ever want to find stuff like this, you can type in right here in the search, a gradient. See, so I can just drag on a gradient ramp on that, which I can tell it to be a radial. Let's go ahead and start of ramp, center, swap the colors and reverse it. Maybe just to create a more interesting kind of background here.
You can't handle the truth. Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by...
Okay, some other cool things to make this stand out. For example, this first phrase here, and remember, doesn't have the black background. I took it and I removed that black background, which means it's alpha channel. It's got no, and watch what I'm going to do with this. Effect, perspective, drop shadow. Add some distance to it, maybe add some softness to it. See that? And now I've got a little bit of blur going around it. And let's say I want to apply that same drop shadow to the other phrase. Well, I can edit, copy it. Control C, select the second phrase here, Control V. Now that's got the drop shadow. Come here to this text, Control V, and I'm able to copy effects across layers. And that kind of gives a very cool effect.
You can't handle the truth. Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns.
Now you see what is happening there? Every time I hit the space bar, it's giving me this green progress. That's the RAM preview. The more keys and the more effects you add, the slower the RAM preview will get until it can rip through and do it.
Walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Who's going to do it? You, Lieutenant Weinberg? I have a great...
All right. So we can keep working, we keep working, we keep working, we get this thing done here, right? We can even put our name at the end as a who, what, when, where, what is the class, what is the assignment, or we could put it at the very beginning here even. But like I said, I really want you only to work with colors, fonts, text, and audio, not really play around with graphics. Now we could, okay, let me just show you here. We could play around a bit. Where's my... Oh, there we go. We could come in here and grab an interesting, like, let's say, camouflage or something like that. Since it's kind of a theme here, I can come here and find, you know, a camouflage kind of background of some type. See, right? And right click and save image and save it to the desktop folder, right, for the class. Okay, and make a folder here that represents it. Now, I can go back to my project folder. Again, import, file. There's the texture. Maybe I'll put that on top of, so you can see how I can put a texture in there.
You can't handle the truth. Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns.
All right, so I can do that, maybe to add a little bit more depth and texture to it all. I can even tell it to be less opaque, more opacity or less opacity. I've even got Photoshop tools here like blending modes. See? So just think of motion Photoshop when you're in After Effects.
You can't handle the truth. Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men.
All right. The last thing I'm going to talk about here, because so far I've talked about individual compositions, right? Working on the little bits and pieces to build the phrases. making a master comp to align them all to that. The last thing I'm gonna do is do what's called nesting. And to do that, I'm gonna make another new composition. Maybe I'll call this final comp. And I'm gonna take the master comp now into the final comp. And you see what it's done now. Now it's treating it as one layer. One layer, but I can still go back here and make changes, right? I could come here and I could do any effect change, color correction, hue saturation. See, and I could come here and say, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna change the color of that camo now, and it applies it all the way over here into the nested comp. But the last thing I'm gonna do here, in my effects, which is you see in a lot of them with these, is type in the word wiggle. And you see we get these wiggles. Wiggles are random movements, okay? You have wiggle rotate, wiggle scale, wigglorama, wiggle position, right? I'm gonna apply a wigglorama to the whole thing, okay? And what that tells me now, let's see, is I need to, let's see, rotation is too high, let's put a low rotation. Scale's too high, let's play around with that. I'm just turning down these values. Because they're just too high, because I want to get this kind of random floating around here. Watch this now.
You can't handle the truth. Son, we live in.
All right. Now, one thing you did notice too, when I made this new composition, this nested composition, it's not the full length, which was 3706, I think. Let's go ahead and expand that back out. There we go.
You can't handle the truth. Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Who's gonna do it? You, Lieutenant Weinberg? I have a great responsibility that you.
Now, if you are having trouble with this playing back, remember, I am looking at this at full resolution. You could definitely watch this at a quarter resolution. It's just a preview quality, see? And so if you ever look at your composition here, you're like, oh, why is it so pixelated and blurry? Well, that's because it's a preview. But looking at a quarter is kind of like when you stream a video from YouTube or online, that if the second you go full screen, it slows down and you got buffering issues. Well, look at it at a smaller size or a smaller preview quality, and it kind of goes a little quicker, a little better. All right, so let's assume here, I'm gonna hit Control S again. Let's assume here I've gotten to a point where I'm done, I've got the whole thing done, I like it, where I wanted changes, I've made, dynamic words have more dynamic motion or movement. Like I said, go look at some of those samples that are online that are there of Kinetic Type. And I've got to complete it. Now, how do I get this out of After Effects? Because right now it's just an After Effects file, but how do I get it out and convert it to that H.264 MPEG-4 1920 1080 format? Well, this is done here in a file, export, add to Adobe Media Encoder, Q. So this again is that process of you need to have that installed as well on your machine. This launches the Adobe Media Encoder. What is the Adobe Media Encoder? It is this badass little render engine. It's the oven for all things video. It kind of reminds me a little bit of what QuickTime Pro used to be on a Mac, where you can convert to different file formats, you can make edits, you can do color changes, and all these different formats. Now, because I exported it to Media Encoder, it's loading up here. In just a moment, it'll pop up here as it syncs with After Effects. And there you have it. Now, if I click on this here, this first option, this is where I can verify all the different formats. You see there's animated GIF, H.264, AVI uncompressed, QuickTime, etc. I want H.264s. They are a lossy quality because they're giving up bit rate and data rate and information to make a smaller file size. But if we don't do an H.264, the file will be too large to upload. I do not want gigabytes of video, okay? I want it small and easy to read. If by chance you want a super high quality version of that, 4K or God knows what else, you can do that. I don't want it, okay? So first thing we're gonna choose is H.264. Next, we go to the presets. Now, by default, it wants to match the source high bit rate of what we just did. That's fine. But you see, there's also, like Facebook 1080, Facebook 720, high quality 1080p is probably the one we want to use here. But there's also Twitter, video, YouTube, all these different formats that are default. Either match source high bit rate or choose a high quality 1080p. You see here, I can scrub through to make sure it all looks good from start to finish. Make sure you don't have like an hour of black at the end of your shot here. You could also trim it here. Moving down, we go to output name. This is, again, it's named after the composition here. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to go to my assignment 1 kinetic type. And I will call this again. This would be called your last name kinetic type, or you could call it last name assignment 1 and save. And look here, you can even make adjustments. So you can see it's a 1920 1080. I can go into effects here and I can change, color, lumetri. See, and make color corrections after the fact or speed grading. I can insert an image or a watermark or my name on here. I can publish directly to the cloud or directly to Adobe Stock or directly to Facebook or directly to an FTP server, Twitter, Vimeo, YouTube, right here inside of the media encoder. So very cool, powerful things we could do with the media encoder. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hit OK here. Now be aware, nothing is happening. And nothing is happening because we have to hit, see it's ready, but nothing happens until we hit this Start Queue button. This will show you the preview down below here and the progress of the encoding of the After Effects file to the H.264 1920 1080 format. And when it's all done, gotta finish up here. You can also stop this and pause this if needed. A lot of times, if you've got a lot of projects here you're working on, I'll typically do this all at night and stack all of my projects into my After Effects media encoder here, and then fire them off. And then we can delete and remove it now that it's finished. Minimize my media encoder, and let's go ahead here. And here is the 1920 by 1080.
You can't handle the truth. Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Who's going to do it? You?
All right.
You, Lieutenant Weinberg?
So, in a way, that is what you would upload. And how would you upload it? Well, you would upload it here in these. You can go upload it into the assignment folder. See where it says not submitted. You come here, you add a file, you can say something about, and you submit it. And I do believe that the submission is a 2 gigabyte limit as well. So just be aware that if it's bigger than that, it's not going to fit. All right. Now, something that's interesting here, watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to go file a new project here just to clean my slate. Now, I've been using After Effects for about, an hour and 45 minutes now. But something that happens, if you're done with a project, or if you find that your machine is running low in memory, look at this, edit, purge, all memory and disk cache. Well, you can see here in the hour and 45 minutes I've been teaching, every time I hit that space bar and I get a RAM preview, it ate 19.5 gigabytes of memory. Now, if you want to keep working on that project later on, don't clear your cache because it's going to want to start from scratch if you clear it. But if you're done, clear that cache, I'm about to get 20 gigabytes that it ate in an hour and 45 minutes. So I'm just going to hit OK, clear that up. My computer just got 19 gigabytes back. Now, something else I've got here, you can see here, I've got a couple other ones. I got a Kinetic Type project that's already done here. I've got one called Whale, okay? Now, if you want to work on an existing project, you can open it. See, that's the project I was just working on there. Let's go to Whale. Let's open Whale Kinetic Type. After Effects, okay, let's convert it. Okay, now, what is this? Well, let me hit the space bar here. You can see the different composition layers. See? Animated, 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 the master one. Let's see what this does. So I even added sound effects.
I've been trying to swim a lot, you know. You always hear swimming's the best exercise. You see how bad whales are? Whales, they're like swimming all the time.
So you can see you can get creative with some sound effects. You can add some other, I don't want to get so crazy here with extra graphics. All right, so there's that one. Let's go ahead and open a different project here. Let's save it. I don't know what this one is. All right, that one doesn't work. All right, so here's a little different one here.
I'll give this little cookie an hour before we're doing the no pants dance. Time to must go.
Wow. Never ceases to amaze me. What cologne are you gonna go with?
All right, so again, a different movie scene, stand-up comedy, all this stuff. But you can see how I've got
this little cookie an hour before we're doing the no pants dance.
now here you can see that phrase is just, you know, phrase one here. I'm using vertical type. I'm doing the layout, but what I'm doing is I say, this is what I want to look, this is what I want it to look like when it's all done before the page turns, before the next phrase. So I set this up, and I set this up using Photoshop, right? And I set it up, then I bring it in After Effects, and that's when I'm able to then animate and change its colors, add drop shadow, do some fade out to it all, you know, to get the effects. So lots of different ways to go about approaching this. Now, even there, let's go back to a new project a second here. I'm just kind of curious to see, just in that last 5 minutes, how much memory did I eat? Oh, 3 gigs. Well, that's cool. So After Effects is a beast because it's meant as a shot creator, not an editor. If you want to edit a bunch of clips together, you typically would use Premiere Pro, which works very well with After Effects because you can actually export to Premiere Pro.